Welcome to Watch the Booker Man and to the penultimate part of this 10-part TNA 2009 series, one of the most important shows of the save so far. Final Resolution 2009, the last pay-per-view before Paul Heyman comes to the company, and I'm pretty certain in the cases of every championship, the last time any of them will be defended. That means that the people who walk out of tonight's show with the championships around their waist will be the champions going into the Paul Heyman era and will make up a large part of representing what Paul Heyman wants to see in TNA. The show begins with a video package, the last pay-per-view of the decade, sort of Christmas feel maybe because it is quite close to Christmas, some sort of acknowledgement that this is the end of the year. The two top matches, AJ Styles versus Daniels for the TNA World Championship and Kurt Angle versus Desmond Wolfe, which has perhaps an even bigger stipulation because the winner will become the number one contender for Genesis, but if Kurt Angle is defeated by Desmond Wolfe for the third time in a row, he will leave TNA for good. The first match is a big part of setting into motion the things that we want to see from the Paul Heyman era as the Motor City Machine Guns win the TNA World Tag Team titles, Alex Shelley pinning Douglas Williams following a Made in Detroit. I'm hoping that's their tag team finisher, which I really like. They stand tall after the match and we're putting over that they are the new tag team champions and it is the first time that they have ever held the championship. Such a great tag team. I don't know how long they'd been active at this point, but I was quite surprised to hear they'd not held the tag team titles before this date, but two guys who, again, I've said it, exemplify this new style we're going for. They are young and hungry. They have a really exciting in-ring style, and that is exactly what we want. They're the tag team champions going into the Paul Heyman era. We then get a Taz and Tenay discussion, and they're going on about the pay-per-view main event, Daniels versus AJ Styles, and more importantly, the Tomko factor. In recent weeks, it's been suggested that Daniels brought Tomko back. They're working together against AJ Styles to get the world title off him and onto Christopher Daniels, but Daniels has absolutely denied this for weeks and weeks, but it seems like tonight when they go one-on-one it'll be the perfect time to see if Daniels is innocent or whether he has something to do with Tomko's return to TNA. We then get the Knockouts Championship match, and a match that I was very much struggling to decide, and I've gone back and forth on this a few times, including changing things for the next episode. I've got a one-night women's tournament kind of thing, a three-way women's tournament, and ODB and Tara were the favourites to win that, and I wasn't sure who was going to come out of this show as the champion. In the end, despite all the build-up that Tara's got, I did think that this was like the natural conclusion, Tara regaining the title, but at the last minute I decided that ODB would retain the title, but with a little bit of a contentious finish. It was a tainted win, and as we can see from the ratings there, really, Tara is better than ODB, but in terms of the storyline I want to use, ODB, when the referee is distracted, uses her flask and cracks it over the skull of Tara. This allows her to win. I've not done this as an actual heel turn properly because of the fact that it's been such a heated personal rivalry between them, especially in the last couple of weeks, that maybe it's not reasonable or understandable, but ODB has acted out of her dislike for Tara and not out of being necessarily a heel. It may lead to a heel turn down the line, but for now I've not set into motion anything like that, and it won't be happening before the new year, so it's not something I have to worry about in this save. After the matches, ODB is interviewed about ending the year as the TNA Knockouts champion. She is confronted by Tara. She's furious and she's pushing ODB. This is far from over between them, and I expect that we'll see more matches between them down the line. We then get the Feast or Fired match, which is quite difficult to replicate in this game, but there's 4 cases, so I thought I'd do a 4-on-4, and the 4 winners I'd put on one side and the 4 losers I'd put on the other. The people on the left side of the screen are the ones who take the cases. Consequences Creed gets the first one, Samoa Joe the second, Cody Deaner the third, and it is James Storm who takes the last one. Machismo, Rob Terry, Robert Roode and Sheikh Abdul-Bashir not getting title shots, but also not fired, so that is a relief for them. Jerry Borash comes to the top of the ramp for the big reveal, and we go first, Consequences Creed, and he has the tag team titles. Throughout the match we put over that Creed probably had his eye on the X Division title or the tag team title, but his dream is to be the X Division champion is what we're trying to put over. He actually has the tag team titles, but he is in a team with Black Machismo, so that's fine for him. Storm gets the X Division title. He definitely would have preferred either the World Championship or more likely the tag team titles with Robert Roode, but he gets the X Division title briefcase. Samoa Joe has the World Heavyweight Championship one, and at the same time as Joe opening it, rather predictably, it is Cody Deaner who is fired from TNA. He of course left the company around this time anyway in real life, and at the time I remember watching and I really didn't like his character at all. He's come back to TNA now and he seems to be a much better wrestler and worker than he was then, but for now Cody Deaner will be out of the company and will not feature from this point forward as he has been fired. As we go into the third or fourth match of the night. I think it's the fourth match of the night, actually. D'Angelo Dinero, Suicide, Hernandez and Matt Morgan defeat Jesse Neal, Rhino and Team 3D in an elimination match. I've written down the order of eliminations, actually, because that on screen, the text that the game automatically generates is not what I want it to be. First, Rhino was eliminated, then Suicide, then Dinero, then Jesse Neal, bringing it back to 2-on-2. Hernandez and Matt Morgan overcoming the odds in a way against Team 3D. You would expect Team 3D to beat them as the more experienced duo, but Brother Ray and then Brother Devon are eliminated, meaning that Hernandez and Matt Morgan are left stood tall in the ring. Everybody else has gone to the back, but those two have put in a great performance and won the match for their team. The end of that storyline, it was the Extreme Alumni and Jesse Neal against that sort of ragtag bunch of random guys from the roster who were going against them. We just wanted to put the younger guys over at the end of this storyline, and after that we can happily move on. We then get a video package for the personal rivalry between Bobby Lashley and Scott Steiner. Steiner's been all about trying to steal Crystal Lashley from him, or at least just get into Bobby Lashley's head by claiming that she's into him, which she's denied throughout. We then get the last man standing match, which is the blow off to the feud. At the last pay-per-view, Lashley won a Falls Count Anywhere match. On Impact, there was a mixed tag team match, Scott Steiner and Awesome Kong defeating Bobby Lashley and Crystal Lashley. So in effect, this is the third match that I've booked between the two, and Bobby Lashley wins the feud overall with a spear from something to something maybe. I didn't really fully think through the finish for this, but it's obviously got to be a fairly big spot, and that could potentially be the last time we see Scott Steiner in TNA. Certainly won't be re-signed. I don't know how long his contract is or if I'm going to have to release him, but as far as on-screen performance, maybe he can be a manager. I don't know what the future for Scott Steiner is, but I know that it's not on screen or certainly not in ring for us. Bobby Lashley and Crystal stand tall after the match. She comes down from the back. She was not at ringside for the match due to the violent nature of it, and she signals that Bobby Lashley wants the title around his waist. Recently he won a one-night tournament to get a future TNA World Heavyweight Championship shot, and it is pretty much confirmed. I think I've mentioned it previously that he will get that shot on the first show of 2010. AJ Styles or Daniels against Bobby Lashley for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. That is, of course, if Samoa Joe hasn't already used his Feast or Fired World Heavyweight Championship opportunity. So there's a number of factors going into this match, as well as the fact that either Kurt Angle or Desmond Wolfe, the winner of that match, will get a title shot at Genesis. So we've got five names who could potentially be the world champion by the end of January 2010, and I think it's really good to have a healthy world championship scene with a number of guys who could realistically take the belt. The next video package is for the Foley's Funhouse match. Abyss and Mick Foley have come together, and they were at odds originally, but they've found a mutual respect for one another, and they're going up against Dr. Stevie, who has tried to torment both of them over the last few months. Homicide became an unlikely ally for Dr. Stevie, essentially replacing Raven in this storyline because I didn't want to bring Raven back just for the sake of a short feud. Dr. Stevie is somebody who also where I don't really see much of a plan for me in the future. I've booked him quite a lot in my ECW game, so he's not somebody I'm excited to do much with. Homicide I very much like, but it is their team who are defeated in the Foley's Funhouse match. Foley gets taken down by Homicide on the outside. Abyss is able to fight back and lays out Dr. Stevie with a black hole slam, probably through a table or onto some tacks, some sort of hardcore spot. This was, I think, a mayhem rated, a car crash match, and it came out really well actually. Mick Foley with a 68, obviously he's not the wrestler he once was. He's very, very an occasional wrestler at this point in his career, but his team do win, and Foley is able to eventually get back to his feet and joins the celebration with Abyss, but it is Abyss who is the star of the show. Abyss is another one who kind of over the years he got a little bit out of shape and wasn't what he was, but in 2010 I think there is a lot you can do with Abyss as a monster, and certainly at least if not to push him as a main eventer, to build him up for somebody else to beat and to get a big moment for them, an underdog victory. So I've not quite decided who that'll be yet, but I think Abyss is somebody who can have a number of squash matches to build him up to potentially facing AJ Styles, who may or may not be the champion then, or somebody like that, and you put over the person who beats him in the process of doing that. Samoa Joe is then interviewed with Jeremy Borash, and he's talking about the fact that he has the Feast or Fired World Heavyweight Championship shot. Could he be the X Factor in tonight's main event? As he's speaking, he claims to see something off screen. We don't see it, but Samoa Joe walks off, the cameras follow him, and he goes to the door of Christopher Daniels' dressing room. He's banging on the door. Daniels comes out. Joe claims that he just saw Tomko leaving Daniels' locker room. The camera looks but can't see Tomko, so there's no proof, but Samoa Joe again, we can't really tell his motivation at the minute. He is very much dead set in the idea that Daniels is behind Tomko coming back, but could this all be a ruse to try and get in their head? He did start this storyline by stirring the pot between the two. Could this be a continuation of that? So Daniels or Joe are certainly... We're not sure which way that's going to go yet as we lead into the main event. There is, of course, a match before that, and we get a video package for Desmond Wolfe and Kurt Angle, a 3 Degrees of Pain match, and it's been a one-sided rivalry in terms of in-ring performance. Desmond Wolfe picked up 2 straight victories over Kurt Angle, but this has been very heated. They've brawled all throughout the arena. They've got very, very personal in promos, and this is probably the most personal storyline that we've got going on in the company at the minute, and this is a huge match inside a steel cage. First fall pinfall, second fall submission, and the cage escape for the final one. This match type was in the mod, but it only had pinfall as finish or submission. It didn't have cage escape, which is what it should be, and it also says 2 straight falls there. I don't know how to have an influence over that. I don't know if keeping Desmond Wolfe strong would have changed that or whatever, but I didn't know the booking notes to stop it doing that. That is incorrect. The first fall Desmond Wolfe picks up by pinfall with a Tower of London. That means that Kurt Angle is just 1 fall. It's sudden death for him. If he loses another fall, he is gone from TNA, but he is able to make Desmond Wolfe tap out to the ankle lock in the middle of the ring to tie things up. The idea is that Wolfe didn't really want to submit. The commentator's putting over, though, that if he doesn't submit now, his ankle would be in such a bad condition that he wouldn't be able to climb up the cage. So it's not so much that Wolfe is giving up, because I think that would hurt him a little bit since he's had such a strong push since coming in, but more the idea that he is being smart and thinking on and understands that he has a better chance of escaping the cage if he taps out pretty soon into the ankle lock. It doesn't do him much good, however, as Angle gets him and hits a top rope angle slam, a big huge spot to end the match. Kurt Angle is then able to crawl over to the cage, climb out and escape. Not only has he saved his TNA career, he is the #1 contender and will face either Samoa Joe, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles or Daniels at Genesis for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. The rumours, the talk that Kurt Angle was being pushed to the side, that he doesn't have a future in TNA, that Desmond Wolfe was going to end his career, very much exaggerated, and Taz puts over the fact that it's going to take a hell of a lot more than what Desmond Wolfe brought to get rid of Kurt Angle, one of the best wrestlers of all time from TNA. He is still in the company, and we get a pre-match interview with Daniels. He is denying things again. Samoa Joe is out of his mind. He's trying to manipulate AJ Styles. He wouldn't be surprised if Joe is going to come out and use his feast or fire tonight, so he asks AJ if that is somebody who he can trust. AJ Styles barges in and interrupts the interview. This is sort of out of protocol. It's not something you normally see, the two competitors going face to face just moments before the pay-per-view main event, but it's just trying to put over how heated things are and how messed up Styles' brain is, because he is saying to Daniels he doesn't care what's gone on in the past, this is just about tonight, and he needs Daniels to promise him if he's got something to do with Tomko, don't do it, not this way, not tonight. Their friendship has been too strong for too long for him to throw it all away just to steal the World Heavyweight Championship. If Daniels does it like that, then it is over and they will never ever be friends again. I don't know if that was the exact... That made AJ sound a bit soft there. We get a video package for AJ Styles versus Daniels, and it's just putting over the Tomko factor that has dominated the last few months. First he was the hooded man, then he was revealed on the episode after Turning Point 2009. Daniels has yet to be attacked on screen by Tomko, but does claim that he's taken him out off screen. No evidence for that, but Samoa Joe beat Tomko the other week. AJ Styles beat him on the Go Home show, so those two have had physical interactions with Tomko. The question mark is whether Daniels has something to do with Tomko coming back, and we do find out during this match whether that is the case. It goes 17 minutes and 54. I could have done it longer, but I wanted them to go out and steal the show, and I didn't want any stamina issues with that or anything like that. They have great chemistry, and it's a brilliant main event. 2 excellent performances as we expect in this mod, but also from these two, they did have great matches when they went up against each other. There is a referee bump just before the finish, however, and we see Daniels signal to the back and Tomko comes out, so that seems to be confirmation. Daniels does have something to do with Tomko being in TNA, but Samoa Joe comes down and takes out Tomko, ensuring that AJ Styles is able to win the match and retain his title. AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, far from friends in storyline recently, but obviously Samoa Joe didn't want to see it go down like that. He didn't want to see Daniels win the World Heavyweight Championship, especially not with the help of Tomko, who he has had his own personal issues with. AJ Styles stands tall to end the show, Samoa Joe looking on from the top of the ramp, but he does remind AJ Styles by raising his Feast or Fight briefcase that anytime he wants, he can take the World Heavyweight Championship. So that's the end of the pay-per-view and the last pay-per-view of the save. I'm quite happy with how that went. We did get the final reveal for Tomko and Daniels, and it is a proper established heel turn for Daniels, although I'm not sure I actually did that in-game. I don't know if he's already a heel, actually. I'm not 100% sure, but the point is Daniels is aligned with Tomko in some way. I'm not sure how long-term that's going to be. I think Daniels is somebody who I'm not sure if they actually released him quite soon into Hulk Hogan and Bischoff. I know he wasn't there for a very long time, but I think there's a long way for Daniels to go in the company, but I'm not sure where he goes with perhaps potentially getting lost in the shuffle at the start of 2010. There's going to be so many guys we're trying to build up that Daniels is somebody who might struggle, so potentially having Tomko as his bodyguard does give him something a little bit different, and certainly giving him a heel run means that he's not competing with trying to be as good as AJ Styles, but as an antagonist and somebody who can get under people's skin, use Tomko as his bait and his bodyguard, and then go on to have good matches against pretty much anybody because he's such a consistent, really good performer. I'm a big fan of Daniels. AJ Styles still the TNA World Champion, and a great thing coming out of this pay-per-view, I think, is the vibrant world title scene. Like I said, Samoa Joe, Bobby Lashley and Kurt Angle all have their claim to the number one contendership. Desmond Wolfe isn't going to go away quietly. Abyss picking up a good win. There's a lot of people who come out of this pay-per-view very positively. We've pushed out the veterans, Scott Steiner, even Team 3D and Rhino, definitely establishing that there is a hierarchy in the company, and it is the younger talents who are coming out on top. Really happy with that pay-per-view. One last episode of this show, the final episode of 2009, the last show of the decade, and that show more than anything is going to set up for Paul Heyman's 2010 TNA. We're going to have a match card for the January 7th show, is it? It's the Thursday, we're not going to the Monday, so I think it's January 7th. We're going to have the full match card for that special event. It's going to be a 3-hour episode of Impact, and we're going to try and promote it and hype it as much as we can. But we're not going head-to-head with WWE. Instead, we are trying to be that alternative, and there will be some debuts on that show. But before then, there is the final episode, like I said, of Impact. And I think that's going to be a good show to end this series, and I'll probably do something to do with the future plans for the save, ask for maybe opinions from people on who to sign. I'll probably do a poll in the description, things like that. So it's not only going to be the last episode of the series, it's also going to be like a future plans, look at my shortlist, things like that, just to try and continue to build up to Paul Heyman's arrival in the company and that TEW 2020 save that I have planned for TNA's 2010.